We live in a new age, and it's time for us to upgrade our tinfoil hats. Operation Tinfoil is a freedom-focused small business and trusted sponsor of this show. Their super comfortable new line of beanies and baseball caps will not only crown your skull in style, but each of these dome defenders is lined with a silver mesh that blocks up to 99% of EMF radiation from cell phone towers, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and yes, even 5G. We don't know what EMF radiation does to the brain long term, but neither do they, so don't be their guinea pig and don't wait around to find out. Get your stylish tinfoil hat of the future today at gettinfoil.com. Use the promo code SYSTEM for $10 off your order. Again, that's gettinfoil.com. Use the promo code SYSTEM for $10 off your order. Have you or a loved one been injured by some fuck nuggets, reckless driving, a tumble at your shitty job, or some other form of dumb shit outside of your control? Well, fear not, because today's episode is sponsored by a lawyer. Lone Star Injury Attorneys is an award-winning personal injury law firm that achieves maximum results for its injured clients. Max the Axe is not just a lawyer, but a hardcore Mises Caucus libertarian and also a big supporter of this show and all of our bullshit. Max is the best personal injury lawyer in Texas, but don't judge him by his occupation or location. Max is an avid defender of liberty and justice in whatever state you got fucked in. If you've been injured and your ass needs saving, go with the pros at Lone Star Injury Attorneys. Visit LoneStarInjuryAttorneys.com or Google Max the Axe. Consultations are free and you don't pay a single dime unless you win. Once again, go to LoneStarInjuryAttorneys.com and get your ass covered.
We are here at the Libertarian Convention of North Carolina with the great Chase Oliver. Chase, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be in North Carolina.
Thank you for being here and giving us some time at 8:30 at night. Well, I think an auction's going on. Is that what we're missing?
Yeah, something like that. So I'm not doing any auctioneering tonight. Just hang out with you instead.
I appreciate the time. As I've said in all these interviews, we're trying to just less talk about, I mean, we'll get into a little bit of the politics and stuff, but I want to know like more who the person is and who the candidate is as a human. So we've been opening each one with, what is your favorite song ever?
Oh shit, that's a really, that's a tough
down
one.
to the hard questions.
I probably grew up with a lot of heavy metal, so probably I think Master of Puppets is probably my favorite album. So it's probably one of the best songs that's ever been out there is Master of Puppets by Metallica. I'm an old school metalhead that way.
Why's that?
Loud, fast. I was a drummer in high school. I was in the drum line, so percussive, heavy music was always fun to me. Yeah. Another band that maybe folks haven't heard of as much is Sepultura and Soulfly, two awesome bands. When I was in drumline in high school, that was the logo. The Soulfly logo was actually the logo we stole. We stole their IP to make it the Brookwood Drumline logo. So that's another band that maybe folks out there haven't listened to it, but really cool Brazilian rock band.
Do you still drum at all?
Not really. It's been a long time since I've drummed. I haven't had a kit in maybe 10 years. So.
Yeah. Playing any bands or anything?
Other than the jazz combo in high school and the marching band, no. Sadly, I did not. I was not the most proficient drummer, even though I loved doing it.
Sure.
But really what I loved was keyboard instruments like marimba and vibraphone and things like that. So not really a whole lot of rock bands with a marimba player in it.
They're few and far between. Do you do anything like musically anymore, or
other than karaokeing at my local bar every once in a while? Not really. Love to sing some Johnny Cash, Tyler Childers, things like that. A lot more country heavy now.
Let's hear your best Johnny Cash.
Oh, shoot! Ring of Fire is probably the song that I go with most.
I said, let's hear it.
Oh, I am not singing on this microphone without a musical prompt. But everything, it all comes out like,
no?
Yeah, Hurt is a good song, but yeah, I can't sing right now. It's 8:30 at night, 9:30 at night.
I mean,
I'm not nearly buzzed enough.
I was really straining myself just to get through that bass line. But so you've had some evolutions, I would say, over the years. Like you were what people would say was a little more woke in the past, and now you're a presidential candidate now, so you got to be more like speak more broadly to your base. Would you say that your views have shifted or anything? Or?
Not really. I've always been kind of the same person. Maybe the way I communicate as a candidate is the way I might communicate differently than as just a regular Joe. But I think that's your job as the candidate, is to communicate our values in the way that broadly represents, certainly if you're running for president, that broadly represents us most of all. But I don't think I would necessarily consider myself a woke person. Maybe this conception happened because I came here from the Democratic Party.
Sure.
But even when I was a Democrat, I was a Democrat who loved guns, hated taxes, loved free trade. The reason I was a Democrat is because I opposed war and George Bush was the president.
Yeah.
And as soon as they stopped being an anti-war party.
At that point, if you were anti-war. Yeah.
Yeah. So as soon as we got Obama, and then it was went from being the Bush war machine to the Obama war machine, that's when I was like, what am I even doing here? Like, this isn't even really an anti-war movement. It was an anti-Bush movement.
Right.
It just dissolved. So that's how I found libertarians, man.
Yeah. And you've said it was John Mons that brought you in, right?
Absolutely. We were at the Atlanta Pride Festival in 2010, and the Libertarian Party of Georgia's tent there, and I'm like kind of trying to read what it says in the distance, and I just see a guy being like, "Come on over," and that was John Mons. He literally waved me into the tent.
He lured you into his tent.
Yes, he did. He lured me into his tent and then convinced me that being anti-war is really a libertarian policy, and said, "Come here and sit with us libertarians, and we're going to connect your anti-war views with the broader liberty view."
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do with a lot of voters is like, hey, maybe you have one idea that's really libertarian, and we want to connect that to a philosophy and to principles that can then make every other thing that you think about more libertarian maybe when you think about it.
Yeah. Now you talk about like pop culture stuff, like working more art and, I don't know, humanity, I guess. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like more pop culture into the libertarian stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, like, so recently in a debate, we were asked, like, who's your greatest libertarian influence, or who was your first libertarian influence? Yeah. And people would say, like, Mises and Rothbard. And I said Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They were my first introduction to the ideas of liberty, free speech, radical free expression. Yeah. And I didn't even know what libertarianism was at the time, but it keyed me to those ideas. And then I always tell people, like, I go to libertarian conventions, I say, like, raise your hand if you've read Mises on Liberalism. And, like, 4 people raise their hand. And then I'll say, raise your hand if you've seen Star Wars. Yeah. Everyone's hand goes up. And I say, well, that's about a group of ragtag freedom fighters taking down an authoritarian empire. It's a very libertarian story. We need to connect our values and our principles through art and culture in a way that resonates with voters. So if you're a parent and you want to have your teenage daughter become a libertarian, do not hand her Ayn Rand. Yeah. Hand her the Hunger Games. Hand her the Hunger Games. Ayn Rand is kind of,
I agree,
a little bit older once you've kind of gotten a little bit more steeped into things, but it's a tough read the first time.
Once you progress further into the autism, then you really embrace the Rand. But yeah, start with something that, it's just about kids killing kids. Wholesome stuff.
Well, about how one of them realizes that, communism and is terrible and
my daughter loves
fashion
them,
is terrible.
And I love that she loves them. Yes, for the same reasons.
Great freedom fighting novels. So yeah, we need to break through culture that way. And I think if we did, we'd be taken a little bit more seriously as a party and as a movement. And we wouldn't be seen as like this academic thing, because so many people view libertarianism as like this academic pursuit, a lot of institutes, a lot of buttons. Exactly. And so instead, like, let's relate that to culture and art, which is something that's way more easily accessible to the average voter, the average person.
So with Matt Stone and Trey Parker being like your biggest inspiration, there was somebody on stage recently named Toad, who also is into offensive comedy, and you said you're just a podcaster. Would you say that he is working in pop culture and he's doing the thing that you're describing of doing the Matt Stone and Trey Parker?
I think he's kind of free to do what he wants to do, and if that's the way he wants to engage liberty, in the context in which I said that was at a debate stage with a bunch of candidates, and it seems different, right? The reason was I felt like maybe he's not taking this seriously because he's not being a serious candidate, and I find that's fine if that's what you want to do. More power to you. And if he can bring people to liberty, good for him. And I think everybody can find their own avenue. I'm being a candidate right now because I found value in being a candidate. I think I'm a pretty good one. But doesn't mean that there's not other worthwhile ways to bring people to liberty. Podcasting is one of them. I wasn't meaning to discount podcasting. Sure. But I just think,
Do you think that the Tower Gang podcast is a net positive or net negative?
Honestly, never listened to an episode, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I have to be neutral in that respect.
Would you join me in condemning the Tower Gang podcast as irrational and repugnant?
You seem like a pretty trustworthy guy, so I'm going to go ahead and side with you on this because you're
it's like an abomination to God.
You're a very trustworthy face, so I'm just going to take you at face value and say, yeah, go for it.
So you have said things online like kind of disassociating from the Libertarian Party when the Mises Caucus took over. Do you stand by those now, or has that shifted?
Well, here's the thing. I've always been a libertarian. And when I've disagreed on social media with messaging, that's more speaking to who in particular was running the social media for the Libertarian Party. I've always been a libertarian. I'm always going to be a libertarian. Yeah. But I will say this. They say actions speak louder than words. The same day that I make criticism online of the Libertarian Party, which let's say he who has not criticized the Libertarian Party at one point or another, please throw the first stone. We all have. Fair. But at the same time, when I was criticizing that party, I was also doing the work of door knocking and representing our party as a Senate candidate and running with our brand and putting our brand forward and putting my face on our brand. And so, I can have criticisms of the party, But I'm a libertarian, and I want our party to be prominent. I want us to grow and be professional. And
So you were knocking on doors at the same time that you said there is no tent big enough for myself, my friends, and my family to be alongside racists and bigots?
Yes, absolutely. I freely don't associate because it's not good for our party and our movement.
I
Because it
mean, why
turns
would you be
regular
knocking
people
on
off.
doors for them at that point?
Because I don't believe that the party I represent and the party that I was a member of certainly is represented by those values. I don't think the values of liberty really coincide with the values of bigotry.
Sure.
I think bigotry is collectivism. So even if there are people who are racist or claim to be libertarian and are racist and hold those views that they hold are actually antithetical to the libertarian philosophy of meritocracy, of being judged by your actions, not by immutable characteristics, collectivism. And so I do believe those things. I don't believe that the tent is big enough to have the regular community. And if you look at this, people, for every one racist, right? For every one hardcore racist you would throw out of the movement, you would gain 10 regular people. But if you bring people in, nobody wants to hang around crummy people. And for a political movement, it's just not one. I don't. And here's the
I'm
thing.
not here like endorsing racism or anything.
No. But and as a libertarian, I fully believe in free speech and expression.
Yeah.
You can express yourself in those ways, and I can expressly deny those things and say that I don't support them. And for building a political movement, I think that's something we have to do. Because if we want to demand that, and as libertarians, we believe that the free market should be able to address these issues.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do that, we have to be willing to call them out as they exist, and not to say, well, whatever. We have to have our own opinions on it.
I agree. I mean, for the most part, I agree. Again, I'm not like here endorsing racism, but things like I don't support this party because of racism, and then more recently saying liberty isn't about judgment. Do you know for a fact that the people that you were calling racist were racist, or were you just judging them based on the I don't know, the words that they use online?
So when I say liberty isn't about judgment, what I'm meaning is with regards to policy with government. Government should not be judging your life, your expression, your speech one way or the other. That is for individuals to determine through free association. So I can absolutely have a point of view, and I can absolutely judge people for abhorrent views or terrible things they say, but I don't want the government to be doing that judgment for me. I don't want the government to fight a culture war for me, for instance. I'm LGBTQ. I don't need the government to fight that war for me. I believe we can fight that in a free market of ideas. And so similarly, liberty to me is not about judgment. It's not about forcing one way to live or one way to believe or one life to have. It's about the plurality of all those experiences. And as long as you're living in peace with other people, honestly, you can say and express yourselves however you want. And then I have the responsibility or the self-governance to then either associate, disassociate, or ignore. And in cases of racists, I choose to disassociate.
Sure. So disassociate from the movement, the party, or just the one racist or the one tweet?
Individual opinions and things like this. I believe our party is, again, I believe the libertarian philosophy in the party is one of actual peaceful coexistence amongst all different kinds of people. It speaks to broad diversity. Sure. And so doesn't mean I'm distancing myself from the party. It means that if anything, it means I might have criticism within individuals, but for the whole part, for the libertarian philosophy, I think that is a pure, good philosophy based on principles, and one that I'm happy to stand for and represent. Yeah. And so, for me, one individual tweet or one individual disagreement with a person does not say I don't want to be a libertarian. I don't think libertarianism is great. I think libertarianism is the best political philosophy as it exists. We need to do a better job of communicating that out to voters so it grows. That's really where we run into problems.
Well, you said I do not endorse. I do not at all endorse them. There is no tent big enough. So I'm just like I don't mean to like beat a dead horse, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but to say that you're not like throwing the party out when you say I do not endorse the party. The tent is not big enough for these people, and also liberty isn't about judgment. Like I don't know. It's hard to add up.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably trying to put a square peg in a round hole here. And I think there's a disconnect from where saying that, I want our party to actively separate ourselves from those who would be collectivists. And bigotry is one of those things. I would like our party to actively...
Does collectivist go beyond racism and bigotry?
Well, there's all kinds of collectivism out there.
So any collectivism, we shouldn't have any part in.
Politically, I typically try to oppose judging people collectively, whether it be any immutable characteristic.
Sure.
I think we should be judging people as individuals. I think that is ultimately when we talk about, say, like the mission of like Martin Luther King, like his ideals were to be judged by the content of your character. That's what I judge people on.
Sure.
So I don't look at people with immutable characteristics and say, let's apply judgment there. But on an individual basis, everybody has preferences and judgments.
Yeah.
And so I think that's natural. But when I say liberty is not about judgment, what I'm talking about is the political philosophy and the way it's applied through government.
Yeah.
True liberty under government would not be a judgmental one. It would not be one that pushes one way over another, whether it's faith, whether it's, whether it's just like the way you live your life, the kind of car you drive, the kind of house, whatever characteristic it is. Government shouldn't be the arbiter of those things. Individuals, culture, those are the arbiters of those things in a free society.
I agree. Now, who was the racist, or what was the tweet?
I have no idea, honestly.
You don't remember?
No, I don't. And I was probably, here's the thing. And here's one thing you might have noticed. I'm trying to focus outward as a candidate for president.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
And I think that, honestly, this is the way we grow our movement. And I think there's been a lot of infighting. And I'm the one who's trying to, for the most part, hey man, I'm just trying to stay cool and represent the entire Libertarian Party.
If you're branching out and being more open to, like, that's why I led with evolving over time and realizing that they're not a bunch of racists, then great. I'm not going to hold it against you or anything. But if if it's just a politician thing where it's like, now I have to talk to these racist bigots over here, then that's a different thing.
It depends on the individual I'm talking about. And that's the thing. Yeah. But when you say, I've evolved, I've always been somebody who's going to call out shit when I see it.
Sure.
And, maybe the way in which I communicate that can change over time.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that, honestly, if you really want to look at the way I address racism now, it's a lot different than when I was younger. When I was younger, I was a punk rock kid. I had a mohawk, with studs and spikes all over me.
Yeah.
And I'd be the first guy to kick the skinheads out of the concert, right? We wanted to fully disassociate with Nazi punks.
Sure.
Literally Dead Kennedys song, Nazi punks fuck off, right? So that was the kind of mindset I had then. I would violate the NAP to fight racism when I was young.
Yeah.
That's the only real evolution I've had, is to do this rhetorically, do this through policy, do this through communication, as opposed to fisticuffs out back of the masquerade in Atlanta.
Yeah. Enough racism, whatever. Let's talk about something more fun, like immigration, which everybody loves that topic. You've pushed for, or you've spoken about Ellis Island style immigration, stuff like that. With Ellis Island, what do you mean by that? Do you mean one port that they all go through, or is it broader?
So by Ellis Island, I mean that ports of entry of the United States should allow people to come here and work and participate, so long as they come through, they pass a basic background check, which, in the days of Ellis Island took quite a while to do. You'd have to stay there for a while. Into the 21st century, you can pretty much do an instantaneous background check and then a health screening to make sure that nobody's bringing in a really communicable disease that can harm people. Other than that, let the free market work. People should be able to freely flow across the border. The only reason why we're doing that background check is to ensure that nobody that's super dangerous comes in, and nobody that is under a warrant that requires us to exercise our extradition treaties with other nations. And we would like them to exercise the same treaty if the reverse were to be happening. So we do have to make that agreement. But even if somebody's wanted by another government, they can also claim asylum. They can say, I'm being politically persecuted by that government, and we should honor that asylum claim and hear that out. Yeah. What we have right now is just a really broken system. I traveled to the border recently, and I spoke to business owners in El Paso, and all of them were like, we'd love to hire immigrant labor. We'd love to hire these people who are waiting for their asylum court date, but they have no legal documentation to work. And so if we were to hire them, we'd get busted. And so what does this do? It leaves them stuck being cared for by the state and by local charities and churches who are being really stretched thin.
Yeah.
When these people, if we could just get people through very quickly, they would go find jobs. I have no fear of immigrants. I go to church with immigrants. I've lived near them. I've went to school with them. For me, they're just people who want to come here and work, just like my ancestors did. And I don't want to pull that ladder up behind me. In fact, the next great American entrepreneur or inventor or great thinker might have been born somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they can come here and become an American.
Like
that's
Elon
kind of
Musk.
a cool thing. Yeah. Well, I don't. Elon Musk, if that's the example you want to use, he did make some awesome cars.
I mean, he's making some great brain chips for Michael Rechtenwald or whatever. So with the Ellis Island thing, would you push for a voucher type system? Like you have to vouch for somebody to come across the border and they keep track of you, or would it just be the government says you're fine to come in because you passed the screening. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I believe in the free market. I believe that if there are jobs here, immigrants will come to fill them. If there are no jobs here, they won't. And we can still, and by the way, I know the saying we had to take down the welfare state. Well, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can reduce the welfare state and dependency for people on welfare while also allowing people to come here and work. I don't think that you have to say, well, we have to do one before the other. In fact, I often say, well, that's putting our principles, basically judging based how the government acts, whether we have principles or not. Oh, the government has a welfare state, so we can't be pro-immigration. Well, there's a lot of gun violence, so we can't be pro-gun, right? That's the same line of thinking. It's stupid.
Yeah.
No, we believe in free movement or we don't. And I do believe in free movement. I think it's what helped build this country, is a lot of those who came here from Europe. And we're seeing this now. And in particular, I want to see people be able to escape tyranny from Venezuela or Cuba or anywhere else and come here and start something better.
Yeah.
If you notice, as crappy as we can be sometimes in the United States, we don't have a lot of people leaving Miami on rafts to go to Cuba. It's the other way around.
We do not. Now, there's this meme that's been going around that has the between 1892 and 1954, 12 million legal immigrants through Ellis Island, and then 10 million illegal since Joe Biden has been in office. Is that a concern, like with this Ellis Island idea, that during that time there was infinitely less people than there have been just in the last 4 years that have come across the border?
Yeah. So with that, also we have to look at the fact that our population has increased like fivefold since 100 years ago. So it doesn't surprise me that there are more people immigrating here.
Sure.
But also we have plenty of jobs that need to be filled. And because of the retiring boomer population, we're going to have, tens of millions of jobs are going to need to be filled by people, particularly in the service and industry, agriculture industry, and even things like the tech industry. So I don't fear bringing 10 million people here. At the time when we only had 12 million people coming, we were a nation of like under 100 million people.
Yeah.
And so, it makes sense to me that we're a more populated world, so there's going to be more immigrants coming. But it doesn't freak me out or anything. I really don't worry about it because if we took that mindset during Ellis Island, we would say, oh, well, we only had so many people come. Now all these people are flooding in Ellis Island. It's going to doom us. But it really helped build the Industrial Revolution that helped bring us to being, one of the strongest economies in the history of ever. So even with all the failures that we have in this country. So, no, I think immigrants are a net plus. I will always be pro-immigrant.
Sure. Same. Do you think that people who are more closed borders, does that get into racist territory for you? Because some people will say it's racist that you don't want them here. Do you consider people racist who are closed borders?
No, I don't, because that's not necessarily racism. A lot of that comes from economic worry, from concerns about security. There's a lot of other concerns there. I don't think it's just brown people bad. I don't think that's a blanket thing. Are there people who are like that? Absolutely. Sure. I've run into them across the campaign trail. You do meet them from time to time. But do I think that's the majority of people who would like to see more restrictions on immigration? Not necessarily. But I don't think that is what is best for our country or our economy. And so it's my job as a candidate for president with the Libertarian Party to explain why free movement is actually better for the average American who might have these fears right now. We need to break down those fears and put some logic into these things. And with facts and logic, you can hopefully break down these fears and misconceptions and bring people into the idea of free movement. Yeah. And you don't do that by blanket calling somebody who has economic worries about where their job might go because of immigration, or that their wages might be undercut because of immigration. You don't do that by blanket calling them a racist. Because frankly, if these people were coming from Europe, if they were white, and it was still the same number of people, and they would still have the same complaint, they would probably have the same complaint. Now, there might be some other people who are like, great, Aryans, this is what I wanted here.
Sure.
But that's a smaller number of people. And we do have to recognize, well, those people exist, and we should call them out where we see them, and basically disassociate from those kinds of ideas because those are rooted in collectivism. We can't do that by also discounting the legitimate economic and fears and worries that people might have that have nothing to do with race.
Sure.
And so that's my job as a candidate, is to explain why immigration is a net positive and not just go around and saying, if you don't like immigration, you're terrible.
Why is immigration a net positive?
Because it helps build jobs, it helps build prosperity, it helps build the next great generation. We've seen from data showing that immigrants and the children of immigrants are more likely to start a new small business. And if we want to talk about even cultural things, which I'm not, again, I don't wage into cultural issues a whole bunch, but if you want to look to a really strong, family-driven sort of people, look to Latin America and the fact that these are, by and large, they're Catholic families who are devoted. And so they're bringing these values that I think are actually net positive for our country. Yeah. And so I again, I don't fear them because many of them are already our neighbors. I actually live with the son of an immigrant. His father came to this country and picked grapes and then served in the military during Vietnam to earn citizenship. He put his son through school, all private school. Him and his wife paid for it, even through college and in law school. And now he's the first of their entire family to graduate from university. He's like the biggest success story they've ever had in that family. And it's only because he was able to come to this country and make something better for himself, meet a wife, and start a family. Yeah. And we want to provide that for a lot of people. There's a lot of American dreams out there that can get started if we just got out of the way and let the free market do its thing.
Yeah, for sure. So with this debate that's happening tomorrow, is there something... Like there's always libertarian drama. There's always, rumor mills and things going around. Is there anything that you want to get out of the debate? Anything you want to clear up before the debate, or any expectations or anything?
No, really, I just look forward to always getting out and speaking to libertarians. It is something that, we've had a bunch of these debates so far. So, if you could not ask,
is taxation theft?
Yes, things like that. Right?
Should we end the Fed?
Well,
we all agree, right?
What I would really like to see is we have debates going forward, and I can't speak to whether tomorrow's, but I would like to continue to see debates that are more substantive issues that matter to the average voter, not just the libertarian voter, because that's who we're going to be communicating outward to after this nomination. And then I would like to see more forum series where we have sit-downs, 15 or 20 minutes with a candidate, long form, so we can do this on stage so people can see us beyond 1-minute answers, because I think that limits a lot of us. A lot of us are long-winded folks.
There is definitely something to the panel discussion format, and I would like to see more of that too. The problem is that y'all motherfuckers talk over each other, and then we can't get anything done.
Yeah. So what I would rather see is, maybe throughout the day at a convention, 30 minutes for this candidate, 30 minutes for this candidate, just throughout the day. Yeah. And then people can come and go as they please. And, cool. I think it would be fun to see, and would be good footage for our campaigns, all of our campaigns, to be able to have that long form.
We are doing the 10-minute. Stuff.
Yes, I get to do my 10-minute stump speech. I have a 5-minute, a 10-minute, and a 30-minute. So I get to move right into the 10-minute stump speech.
There you go, like the full comedy special hour.
Exactly.
As far as politics go. In this running, is there anybody that you're leaning towards for running mate or anything like that?
Well, the first people you want to look for a running mate is obviously the people who are also running for president right now. I think each have strengths and weaknesses that I think could either complement or work well with me. Yeah. So
Toad?
those are the first people.
Going for Toad?
Well, maybe not Toad, but sorry, he just hasn't really campaigned hard enough, and his website's not up.
He's trying real hard.
But what I'd say is the folks that we're seeing on stage regularly are the people that I'm going to be the first looking at, and then there are a couple of people who have also thrown their hat in for VP, so I suppose I should vet them too. Mm-hmm. And they also have a short list of hey, wouldn't it be cool if they wanted to do it? Yeah. So I'm keeping my options pretty open, but I'll be frank. What I'm looking for is somebody who's going to be able, if I'm the nominee, who can either complement my strengths, like push the millennial message, push the new energy message, or help facilitate areas where maybe, he's under 40, get somebody who's a little older in there to be the VP, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of considerations we look to, but I'm keeping my options open and doing the process of vetting right now as best I can. And we'll see how ultimately I don't get to pick, right? Yeah. So the delegates get to pick. So
it's true.
If you guys want to play a
that hard
practical
last
joke,
time. Yeah. You never know what'll happen.
So, you guys can really do anything you want. So as delegates, just please give me somebody cool.
Yeah. Just don't let me down. Don't give me Joe Jorgensen. That's what he's saying.
She let me borrow her AK-47 at Georgia. It was fun.
That's fairly based. Yeah.
It was good to. Yeah. Not only did I get to bring my 38 special from the 50s, I got to bring a Joe Jorgensen Russian-made AK-47 that she bought. She bought it in the 90s because Bill Clinton said no American should own an AK-47. So in her early 20s, she went out and bought one.
Gotta respect that. That's fine. I did the same thing when Joe Biden was threatening it. But I'm curious, beyond the Libertarian Party, what do you think is the biggest issue right now that the general voters are concerned about, and how would you deal with that?
Yeah, well, the number one issue is always going to be the economy, because it's what hits people at home. It's their kitchen table, the bills they have to pay, the cost of living. And of course, we have to address that. I, of course, address that by, in addition to speaking monetary policy and the Fed, I also speak that in the language of the voter by saying balance the budget, stop printing trillions of dollars out of thin air. They don't have to know the full function of what the Fed does to know that printing money out of thin air is bad. Yeah. But beyond the economy, which will always be number one, the two other issues that I'm seeing pop up a lot are immigration, which we already touched on a bit, and then education is a huge issue when talking to parents, and that's because so many of them saw during COVID what public education looks like through a Zoom screen while they were working from home in the other room. They got to see how ridiculously bad and ill-prepared
teachers were saying and talking about.
And
for the first
so,
time.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's a good idea to increase choice in education.
Yeah.
So federally, just delete the Department of Education, send that back to the states, and let them kind of do their thing. We're seeing a lot of fund the student, not the system. Hopefully, I think that leads to hopefully voluntarily funded education in the end. Like that's the end goal for me. But I like the idea of this because it helps not just teachers and students, which we talk about all the time as libertarians. We always say it's good for the parents and the students because they get to have the choice and they're helping decide. But it's also good for the teachers. I know a lot of really awesome people who went to become teachers because they had a really cool teacher in high school and they want to be that teacher.
Yeah.
And they went to school, got trained, get a public school job, and they realize, oh my God, this is so
Kids are
terrible.
awful. Yeah.
This is horrible. This bureaucracy is horrible.
Kids are stupid.
I could totally teach this a better way if I could, but I'm prevented it. And so school choice actually helps free up those school teachers too, because if public education disappeared tomorrow, they're not going to stop being teachers. They're just going to find better ways to teach and better schools to teach in. And so it doesn't just benefit parents and students. It also benefits these teachers who are stuck in a broken system too. So I think it's very important to talk about education.
I agree. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, Jacob Hornberger would say is just reform, 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 which he would say that about all the other candidates too. But I'm just curious, I mean, it is kind of like just breaking it down little by little. Do you think that there's something to his message of we need to go completely just libertarian 101, just strip it all down and...
I appreciate the North Star thinking, but I don't think it fits into the reality of the political conditions we're currently in. If we're going to be able to advocate for those things, we have to advocate how we transition ourselves from full state control.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to go from one to the other. You have to provide some means of transition to that. And I think like funding students, not systems, is not a perfect system. It uses tax money. It taxes people, which taxation is theft. So it obviously is not a perfect system.
Yeah.
But it's massively improved to the public education system that we have right now. And again, I believe over time, this can transition as we reduce the size of the state and get ourselves, hopefully one day, to the minarchist ideal. It will be fully voluntarily funded, but we're not there yet. And we have to recognize that we're not there yet. We can't pretend like we're on the 5-yard line when we're not even, we're not even on the 50-yard line at this point.
We haven't even started the game.
Exactly. So we can't pretend like we're about to run this ball into the end zone if, enough football metaphors. I'm sorry.
Yes, please. For fuck's sake. So you call yourself a minarchist. Is that like the start or is that the end game? Is minarchy the whole thing, or do you go anarchy? If we get there, we keep going.
I do believe minarchy for me right now is the end game. I can maybe be convinced by that over time as we reduce the state. But right now for me, I do see a legitimate function of a state being to secure the liberty of people.
Sure.
And that's a very, very stripped down, teeny tiny, fits in the palm of your hand size government. And so, maybe when we get there, I'll go, you know what, maybe this is too much government. We should go to anarchy. Yeah. But I'll never know till we get there. And so for me right now, minarchy is
we can all agree on the start, at least.
Yeah, the start is to tear it down right now. But I think, ultimately that's the final stop on this train ride for me. That's the station I'm going to get off at while y'all head to Anarchy Station maybe.
It's fine.
But, we'll both be very old by the time that happens.
I'm the same. I'm like, get us to minarchy and then we can talk. Like,
then we'll
it
fight.
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, then it's pistols at dawn, and we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, one final question. I told Joshua Smith that I would call him a coward if he didn't show up to this debate. Would you? Last year I asked you if you would call Dave Smith a coward with me, and he's still...
He wasn't an official candidate, so Josh, quit being cowardly coming to North Carolina. What's going on?
Call him a
What's
coward.
going on, man?
Josh Smith, you're fucking coward. Go ahead. You too.
What is it? Spike Cohen's, you are the coward.
You are the coward. Joshua Smith. Toad too. Also.
Hey man, I kid though. I don't
kid. He's a bitch.
He has got a ginormous number of kids.
He does.
So
I think he just popped 3 more out this weekend. That's why he's not here. Probably.
Yeah. So I am not. I will say this. You got to have some measure of bravery to have that many children in your home and not go completely stir crazy.
Absolutely.
So
and then to dip your toe into politics.
Props to him for it.
There you go. Chase, go ahead. Any final thoughts? Anything that you want to share? Just go and talk to that camera. Tell them where they can find you and anything else, man.
Yeah, you can find my website at votechaseoliver.com. You can follow us on social media at Chase for Liberty on all the major platforms. And, we have real goals for this campaign. We want to win. And that doesn't mean win the White House necessarily. It means we want to win ballot access wins, major party status wins. We want to help electable local libertarians win all over the country. And I want to double our party's membership and hold on to it for 4 years. And if you want to help me do that, you can sign up at votechaseoliver.com and become a volunteer today. We'd love to have you on the team.
Awesome. Chase, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe on your way out and help us change the world one uncomfortable conversation at a time. And if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, go join the Downers Club at patreon.com/thesystemsdown for bonus episodes of the show every single week. Until next time, please continue to question everything, stay uncomfortable, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.